Good morning, adventurers. Today, I'm going to take you on an informative journey about the 7 principles of Leave No Trace. So, Leave No Trace really got its start back in the 50s, 60s, and 70s when camping really started getting popular. More people were just getting out in nature, and it was starting to show. Um, you could notice the signs of misuse and overuse all over the country at state parks, national parks, all sorts of wilderness areas. And it started becoming clear that some rules or some regulations were in order to help protect the land from this misuse and overuse. So in 1990, the United States Forest Service started an education program called Leave No Trace to teach people about protecting the environment and leaving no trace. But then it was very confusing. There was no set rules. There was a huge long list of regulations and rules and ideas. It wasn't until 1999 when the long list of principles was consolidated down into the 7 principles of Leave No Trace that is still in effect today. The first of the 7 principles is planning and preparing. You need to know the special regulations where you're going to be camping at or where you're going to be spending your time in the outdoors. A lot of places have different regulations on how you can store food, how you can dispose of your human waste, how you can dispose of your garbage waste. A lot of places have different rules on that stuff, even where you can hike or where you can camp. Also, part of the planning and preparing ahead is when you plan your trip, try to plan it for non-peak visiting times. If you know, June, July are super busy months for a certain park that you're going to go to, try to do it in August or even September. A lot of times, those times of year are actually nicer because it's a little bit cooler, you don't get so hot, the bugs aren't so bad, and there's not as many people, so you get, a little better experience. One way to plan and prepare ahead is repackaging food. If you have a lot of food that takes up a lot of, uses a lot of waste and packaging, you can take it out of those packages, put it into like Ziploc bags, and then you'll have a lot less waste to deal with on the trail or where you're camping. Even car camping, garbage can become a big problem if you don't pay attention to that. After a day or two, you'll have bags and bags of garbage if you don't plan ahead and prepare. And you're not going to know what to do with it. A lot of campsites don't have waste facilities for you to dump garbage. This last point is something that I'm not very good at, that I should actually try to get better at, is using a paper map and compass. Phones can die. I rely solely on my phone for my maps and everything, and it's never been a problem, but if something did happen, if it got wet and died, or the battery ran out and I wasn't able to charge it, I would be lost. But using a paper map and a compass, that helps eliminate the need for marking the trails and making like stone cairns and marking paint, blazes, and that kind of thing. Those can detract from the wilderness and become garbage themselves. So the main idea behind planning and preparing is just to make sure that you're ready for what's to come. If something happens and you're unprepared and it becomes an emergency situation, that's going to require more people to come in to help you get out, to help rescue you, and that's going to make a bigger impact on the environment. Alrighty, principle number 2 is hiking and camping on durable surfaces. So as you may know, when there's a hiking trail, you can usually see it pretty well. It stands out. But if people start making other trails going around, like say a tree fell here, instead of climbing over it, they started going around, you're going to start getting trails that go around this way and around that way, and you'll start getting trails all over the place. One touchy subject for hikers is a mud puddle. If the trail has become a big mud pile, what are you supposed to do? Because he says to walk on durable surfaces, which mud is not a durable surface, but you're also supposed to stay on the trail. A lot of people say that just go ahead and go around it and stay on the durable surface. Personally, my opinion, I think you should go through the mud. These principles are here to protect the environment, not your shoes. And principle 1 says you should have been prepared for this weather and for the possibility of mud on the trail. Going around is going to create more trails. Eventually that mud is going to dry up, and then you're going to have a trail through the middle, and you're going to have a trail around it. Okay, so in my opinion, you should go through the mud and do as principle number 2 says, and stay on the trail. Camping on durable surfaces, I feel is maybe a little more difficult. We all know what a durable surface is. This area here would be great for a tent. So just some leaves, a little bit of grass. You're not going to damage anything. After one night, that grass is going to pop back up and be fine. Even spaces like over here where you have some small underbrush, you could bend these down under your tent, and when you get up, they'll pop back up. They'll be all right. What you don't want is there's not really any good examples for me right here, but flowers and small little bushes and stuff that, will break under your tent and not pop back up. And you don't want to break any plants to make space for your tent if you don't have to. That's going to make holes in the forest floor. It'll make little areas where it's clearly been cleared. Also, when you set up your tent, you're supposed to set it up 200 feet from any water source. Any water, we got some water right over there, which is probably about 200 feet away, maybe a little less. And we have some water over there as well, which is probably a little closer to 200 feet away. But this is to stop any of your garbage or anything that you have accidentally getting swept into the water. Principle number 3, disposing of your waste properly. Now, disposing of your waste, I feel, is probably one of the easiest ways to minimize your impact. It's very easy to throw your garbage on the ground, and that is a huge impact. So just making sure that you take all your garbage with you is probably the easiest thing that you can do to make sure that you leave no trace. But Missouri and Arkansas are probably the 2 dirtiest states I've ever been to. There is garbage absolutely everywhere, including in wilderness areas. I don't understand how garbage just gets everywhere, but it does, and it really makes a huge impact on not only the actual environment, but your perception of the environment. You need to make sure you pack out all your garbage with you, as well as food waste. A lot of people don't know this, but food that you're not going to eat, you cannot just dump out. That is a hazard for animals, because then they become dependent on human food, or they know. Some animals remember where they get food, and they will return to that space again and again. Just like a cat. If you leave a milk out for cat, they're going to return to your house again and start meowing at your door for more milk. Bears and a lot of animals are the same way. They're going to return for more food. So you don't want to train them to think that there's a food source there, especially at a campsite where there's going to be other people frequenting that area. Another thing that people don't realize is washing your dishes. You do not want to wash your dishes in any water source. You want to get some water and take it about 200 feet away from any water source and wash it that way. And you want to spread that water. Instead of dumping that water into a confined spot, you want to spread it out in the forest and kind of scatter it. Now the fun part, poop. This is something that you're going to have to follow the first one in preparing and planning, because a lot of places will have regulations on where you're allowed to bury your poop, if you're allowed to bury your poop, if you have to carry your poop out. For instance, the Bighorn Mountains where I go, by Cloud Peak, the area there is a pack out area, so any of your human waste you need to put in a bag and you need to carry it out with you. You cannot bury it there. That water source is used for a large population for their water, drinking water, and it would be disastrous if it was contaminated in some way. If the area that you're staying in allows you to dispose of your human waste, what you're going to have to do is you're going to take your shovel and you're going to dig a 6-inch deep cat hole, is what it's called. Do your duty, and then you're going to bury that with your toilet paper, hopefully biodegradable, and that way it'll keep it out of any water systems. It won't wash away and flow into the water systems, and animals won't be able to get it, as well as insects. So, in conclusion, making sure you're disposing all of your food waste, your human waste, and any other type of garbage or anything that you bring with you needs to be disposed of properly. Okay, so far we have plan and prepare, travel and camp on durable surfaces, dispose of waste properly, and number 4 is minimizing your campfire impact. It is fairly simple. It may be one of the more easy ones to follow. Number 1, you only make fires in established fire rings, fire pits, or fire mounds. You don't want to go create more. Eventually, there's going to be fire pits all over the place. There have been a couple places I've been to where there's just fireplaces all over the place. And it gets kind of ridiculous. One of the things I recently learned doing the research for this was that you don't want to use large logs and stuff that you find on the forest floor. You want to use small sticks and branches. That's fine. You don't want to break any branches off of trees, because both the large logs found on the ground and dead sticks that you find are still on a tree are actually habitats for different species of animals and insects and stuff. So they are actually part of the ecosystem, and they need to be there. So when you're gathering wood for a fire, try to stick to the smaller branches and sticks. When you're making a fire, like if you're at a drive-up campsite, you want to make sure that you're using firewood, purchased firewood that's from the local area. There are certain insects and diseases that can be transferred by bringing other wood from other forests in and releasing that into a new forest and contaminating that forest. So making sure you're not bringing firewood from another area, it can introduce invasive species. When you're done with your fire, making sure that it burns out completely. After the fire has burned out completely, you want to spread the ashes out as much as possible to let it cool down faster and those coals don't stay hot. So again, number 4, minimizing your impact from your campfire. Number 5, leaving what you find. You may have heard the saying, take only pictures, leave only footprints. That's kind of where this one comes in. You find cool things and you want to take a souvenir or something, but eventually everyone's taking stuff and eventually it will be ruined. This kind of brings to mind the Petrified Forest in Arizona, Petrified Forest National Park. It at one time had the largest collection of petrified wood in the whole world, but people kept taking stuff. It was unregulated and unmanaged. People kept taking stuff, and now to this day there's hardly any of the petrified wood left in Petrified Forest National Park. So this is a direct result of taking things that you shouldn't be taking, and that's what Leave What You Find is all about. You want to leave it for the next person to enjoy. You don't want to be picking flowers. You don't want to be graffitiing cliffs or whatever. I mentioned it in one of my videos earlier. I think it was Maniopa Park, State Park. Right before the waterfall, there's this giant cliff, and it's just covered in graffiti and carvings, and people carving their names and stuff. And it takes away from the feel of the area. It really does. So number 5, leaving what you find. Number 6, respecting wildlife. This one can be a little difficult. So number 1 is don't feed the animals. This can be hard sometimes because those cute little squirrels and those cute little chipmunks come up and they want some seeds. But that's not, when you go to those places and they're begging for food, that's not natural. They shouldn't be begging humans for food. That's not how they are in nature. This also pertains to at campsites. Proper storage of your food. Have been to campsites where the sun goes down and there are just mice that come out and they're just running all over the campsite. And that's a direct result of people either not storing their food properly or just going ahead and feeding mice on purpose. They can multiply in greater numbers because they have readily available food, and then they also become dependent on that food, and they will return to that area until they don't get food anymore. Not feeding the animals, making sure they're not getting any food. That's also part of hanging your bear bag, that kind of thing. A bear gets some food once, he's going to return to that campsite over and over again to get more food. Keeping your distance from the animals. Don't approach them. Don't follow them. If you're nervous, they're definitely nervous. They'll get nervous before you get nervous. And that's usually the problem is humans are a little more courageous, I think, than the animals are, and they don't realize that the animals are going to get angry. So you need to be very careful how close you get. If they move away from you, that means you're too close. When I was in the Badlands, I would be 200-300 feet away, and I'd come up onto a plains and there'd be a buffalo, and they would get up and start walking away from me. I'm like, I'm not anywhere near you, buddy. But they can be very intimidated by humans, and you don't want animals like that to be intimidated, because they will defend themselves and they will win. Don't harass them, don't make noises at them and bother them. Another thing that I never thought about was don't let your dogs harass or bother the animals as well. Don't let your dog sit and bark at them, and a lot of places don't even let you have dogs in the parks for that reason. It's because dogs can be very aggressive towards other animals. So, number 6, respecting wildlife. We've come to the last principle, number 7. We have number 1 was plan and prepare ahead. Number 2 is to travel and camp on durable surfaces. Number 3 is dispose of waste properly. Number 4 is minimizing your campfire impact. Number 5, leaving what you find. Number 6, respecting wildlife. And then number 7 is, of course, respecting other people. Small ways like if you are traveling uphill, the people traveling downhill should yield to the uphill hikers. The people going uphill are working much harder. It's much easier for the downhill people to step aside and let the uphill people go first. When you're camping and you set up a campsite, it should be 100 feet away from any trail. When people are hiking, we don't want to see your campsite, we want to see the wilderness. So 100 feet from the campsite, hopefully not visible from the trail is the idea. Keeping your pets under control, make sure you're keeping them on a leash. Almost every place has a rule that says that you need to keep your pets on a leash. And honestly, when I'm out in the wilderness, that's rarely the case. Most of the time, unless it's like a city park or something like that, and a lot of people are walking their dogs. Otherwise, most people do not have their pets on a leash in the wilderness. Try not to make too much noise. One of my biggest pet peeves is when large groups come out and they're very noisy at night at their campsite. I can hear them across the lake or through the woods. People that hike with really loud music, that can be aggravating because a lot of times they don't realize that you can hear them from a long ways away, longer than you would think. So even though you think you're in the wilderness all by yourself, there are other people out there camping somewhere, and try to make sure you're not heard. We want to hear the sounds of the wilderness. So, number 7, respecting others. So, one more time. Number 1 is plan and prepare. Number 2 is travel and camp on durable surfaces. Number 3 is disposing of your waste properly. Number 4 is minimizing your campfire impact. Number 5, leave what you find. Number 6, respect wildlife. And number 7, respect others. So these 7 principles are set up just to help us maintain a healthy wilderness environment for generations to come. Leave it the way you find it, so someone else can enjoy it too. Thank you for joining me on this informative adventure today, and I'll see you next week on Happy Trail Backpacking.